All right. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with us, we're the Eurozone, and we have a lot of these uncomfortable political discussions, I guess.
They can be,
That's what we do. And the topic today is around Palestine as an example issue of an oppressed group and a system of oppression more broadly. We're going to tie it together with a few other examples, and then at the end, hopefully get to why exactly all of these systems of oppression exist, how they intersect, and what we can do about it. So, I just want to introduce the panel real quick. We have Sil joining us, who is a member of the global Sumud Flotilla. He went from Sicily to Gaza.
Almost,
yeah. Almost. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the organization there and how that is to challenge oppression through that attempt. And then I have my usual co-host Ruben, who is a longtime activist in Amsterdam. He works with the Handala, Stichting Handala.
Mm-hmm.
And they also work on raising money for Palestine, for Gaza. And have a lot of experience in the challenges and sabotages that you face here in the Netherlands when trying to do stuff like that.
The donations of today are going to go to the foundation to support families in Gaza with food through Wasim's family especially and the people they know. Yeah.
So that's big thank you to Ruben for setting
Well,
that
I'm
up.
not doing anything. I'm just collecting and sending.
Yeah,
I'm the medium.
I still feel like you deserve some credit. Let's
Thank
say
you.
that way. Yeah, but let's start right away. So obviously, right now the situation in Palestine is quite fragile. We have this fake ceasefire, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ceasefire in the sense that Palestine has ceased fire, but obviously Israel is continuing to bomb. It's the same sort of ceasefire that we have seen in Lebanon now for almost a year. And that doesn't stop. Obviously, when you first launched were part of launching the Sumud Flotilla, the genocide was at a much higher state. I want to start by asking you, where do you think we are today? What have we accomplished so far? And what do you think we need to do next? That's a very intense question, but let's start with what brought you to action, and do you feel like that action has achieved something? Let's start there.
For sure, yeah. So thanks for having me. The sort of I used to organize at my university with a Palestine solidarity group. My friends and I started that, I think, late 2022, and then I sail that like as my job, and so this sort of flotilla, the flotillas that have been happening since 2008, since Israel's illegal siege on Gaza. I've been following them since I was old enough to have a conscience, I guess, and then this was happening, and it was going to be a big thing, and one of my friends was like, "Yo, you should do this," and I was like, "Yeah, checks out." So I went and I joined, and I think a big part of the mission, I think it often gets framed as like delivering aid, but I also think if you look at the ships that we sailed on, it's not a very realistic, the aid that we were carrying, it wouldn't have really materialized or done something really structural. I think a big important thing about the mission was actually breaking the siege, and so Israel has an illegal blockade, and Gaza and Palestinian waters cannot be entered because of Israel's naval blockade. So fishermen in Gaza don't have very limited access to the sea. There is no way for them to leave through the sea. There's no way for anything to come in. And so really, having a free and open waterway to Gaza to deliver aid, but also to do anything and support the people that live there is crucial for Gaza's survival and the people there. And so that was one of the main things that I think was really important about the mission. And
So I completely see your point there. We interviewed Tan Safi. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She was part of the delegation that almost got to Gaza, but was also kidnapped by Israel. And she had the same point, right? That the point is not to bring a small boat of aid to a starving population of nearly 2 million. The point is to really break the siege and to negate Israel the power to completely block access to the outside world. And this is a tactic that we examine quite often. Right now, we see, for example, Venezuela, that brings up issues such as Cuba, where the number one tactic in many of these oppressive structures is to completely cut off a population and segment them, right? Not only from other parties within, such as the Palestinians in the West Bank, so that's the segmentation, trying to pit two groups, individualize the movement into two groups and pit them against each other, but also cutting them off from any supply.
No, it's not
outside.
even two groups. If you look at Gaza, there's maybe like 3, 4, 5 different groups right now. A lot of them supported by Israel as well. Yeah.
This is that's why it's really a classic example, right? Like even within Gaza now, as you're mentioning, they're funding 2 or 3 separate military groups, militias that are more Western aligned, and trying to prop them up to go to war against Hamas and to take control of Gaza. So this constant splitting and isolating tactic, making you feel like you're alone, and making solidarity more and more impossible. And this is a common theme that hopefully we can explore today. So I like your setup there. Would you say, like, am I correct in saying that the goal of the mission was then to show that solidarity is possible in a way, and to reconnect Gaza to the rest of the world?
Yeah, I think there's so many underlying sort of messages of the flotillas is the kind of like also put pressure on this framework of like what international law is and what it's worth, because it's just so incredibly like fucking illegal to do this, and to like it just enables the sort of open air prison of Gaza to exist in this way, and so to show that we can all do something that is like, you know, so much activism or like sort of acts of rebellion against imperialism and oppressive institutions are illegal, and have been legally sort of like constrained, because you can't just occupy and block weapons shipments because that's illegal. And what's crazy and kind of why I think so many ordinary people, I guess, also supported the flotilla is because there was nothing illegal about it,
right?
And so having that legal support was in many ways really helpful to sort of like garner attention to it. But it also kind of just goes to show that it kind of puts, I think, through many things that are happening in the world today, kind of like shows how fragile international law is, and you know that in many ways it doesn't really mean anything anymore, because there is no accountability towards nations and oppressive imperialist institutions. And I think that's really... And
it shows maybe also how fragile the blockade itself is, because in the end, I don't know which one it was it the Sumud Flotilla? They had 50 boats roughly, and then one of them almost reached Gaza.
Yeah.
So this is like a ragtag, like peasants' crusades, of people just going with their own boats put together. And then they are able to challenge the navy of this supposed extreme military power, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it shows that even a small amount of people or a small amount of boats, if you commit and you act together, you can achieve things like this, even breaking the blockade of a military power.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one thing we often said, I think we were 44 boats in total that like got intercepted in the global Sumud flotilla, and 1,000 Madeleines was shortly after us with 7 small boats and the Conscience, this big ship And I think one of the conversations we all had in prison was this like in detention in Israel was this like how far everyone got, and it was like, you know, it was like, oh yeah, we came to 40 nautical miles, and then someone else was like, oh, it's 28, and it was like, okay, so if we actually had more ships, then this would have also, we would have succeeded. But then also a part of that sort of movement, you also need, you know, if the idea is to open up this waterway corridor of aid and support to go to Gaza, we also need bigger institutions or NGOs and governments to also be able to have ships ready with actual aid and actual sort of industrial material to be able to rebuild and support the people there.
Yeah. Were you surprised by the amount of boats that it ended up being, the amount of ships that joined the movement?
Yeah. I sail and I build boats and I work on boats, and when I arrived in Sicily, there was the state of some of the ships was pretty left lots to be desired. So we really like had to work our asses off and get all these ships ready, and yet some of the ships were not up to a certain sort of good standard of going, and we all went anyways, and we had good luck and with weather and eventually good support from the teams that were land based as well. But yeah, it was very tricky.
Yeah. What were some of the blockers you were facing internally in Europe? I know from speaking with Tan that she was receiving, at least in her end, some pushback from local governments.
For sure.
From European governments saying, hey, listen, you're really causing a disaster for us here. Like, we don't know how to handle this PR. We want to protect you, but we also don't want to stand up to Israel.
Yeah.
Is that something that you also saw? Yeah,
it was really, really disturbing, the sort of like spinelessness of European nations. I think everyone from Italy, and there's many Italian people, all of their families were called by their governments, and their family were called and say, make sure your son or daughter or, you know, partner, whatever, does not go. And so they were all, you know, they sort of targeted our families to encourage us to not do this.
Did they introduce what kind of institution they were from, or
it was like Buitenlandse Zaken, basically? Foreign affairs in many countries. I think for us in the Netherlands it was I think like we already sort of announced and had let Foreign Affairs know that we were going to go, and I obviously they weren't happy because they don't want to be put in a difficult position, and they also don't want to do anything. They just want to maintain the status quo, which is tragic.
That's one I didn't hear before. So they were directly calling family members of people in Italy, telling them, hey, you have to pressure your son, your brother, whoever it is, to not go on this mission. So that shows again this constant focus of the oppressive state trying to make you feel alone, and using even your social circles to make you feel ostracized, like what you're doing is illogical or at risk.
Totally.
And that solidarity that you have from your family is so important for you as an individual to do anything, let alone do something dangerous like this, right? I think the first thing you think of is, should I do this? What if I get arrested? What would my family think, you know? Am I betraying the people that I love or hold dear by putting myself at risk?
For sure.
And it's really interesting that they attack exactly at that point, right?
And I think, apart from that, I think there's also like the whole operation, because it was so large, is also really vulnerable to internal sabotage. There was and so you kind of a part of this like whole lingering fear during the mission, because you know how it's going to end. There's also like this sort of like element of trust that is really important and is really fragile, because you know that some people are not there for the mission and they're not there for Palestine, and then there's also people that are there for their own for their own sake, you know, because they are activists or influencers or whatever, and it helps them build their platform. And so I think this is always a thing within sort of organizing circles, where it's hard the sort of divide and conquer, whether that like be sort of all orchestrated by Israel, I don't really agree with. But it's all there, you know, like egos get in the way, emotions get in the way, and it all detracts from. It helps. It turns us all away from what our mission is.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that. I don't think Israel is responsible for all of it.
No, for sure. No.
So I agree with you there, but I do think the tactic used by Israel against Palestinians is the same tactic being used by Europe against its own citizens trying to reform some of these systems that we have. Certainly. Right?
Yeah.
And it's also the same tactics we see being used against pan-nationalist African movements and liberation movements in South America. So I do find it very interesting. And going into that a bit deeper, what other forms of division did you feel or resistance did you feel on this mission? So if this is like the first layer, let's say diplomatic pressure, is there a next layer that you also felt?
I think it's just so incredibly hard to organize a sort of flotilla-based and a sea-based mission. I think for me, there was, we were just lacking general expertise of seafaring, and it's a big trip from Barcelona to Gaza and from Sicily to and from Tunis too, and so having all these components in different ports come together is so incredibly challenging. Knowing boats, like trusting people to sail. I think there's so much power dynamics that have become an issue with the sort of captain, organizer, rest of the people who are crew, people who are participants. Power dynamics. You have there's lots of sort of, even within these sort of solidarity movements, racism and misogyny are still super, super prevalent.
Right.
And it really, it's just really not the way it's supposed to be, and still it happens, and it really it ends up doing the same thing, right? It all pulls us away and tears us apart, and it divides us within the movement, and we never. I was really, in many ways, sort of pleasantly surprised that we actually got as far as we did, because for so many of these factors, I was like, I can't believe that these people are here, or that trust was really fragile and constantly breaking and constantly being built back up again through the people that were there, and sort of the misbehavior and the mismanagement that some people
I see this now getting involved with organizing for the 1,000 Madeleines, the next wave, and we're just getting started, but even getting people that are committed and then making a plan and then getting the logistics, getting the stuff, getting the money, like it's so many different things. And then you have to get secondhand boats somewhere in the Mediterranean, collect them to one spot, fix them up, make them ready. It's insane.
And all of them are stuck in Israel now. So that's
and the boats that were used previously, they cannot be used again. They got taken. So
And as a larger point, Ruben, do you see that as well in activism here in Amsterdam? This idea of individual egos trying to take over the movement and redirect it towards their own vision or their own fame, in some cases, their own benefits.
I guess it happens. It happens a lot. I didn't see so much of it personally, fortunately. You do see a lot of waste of resources on these kind of things as well, right? So people go to some kind of action, they get arrested, and then they are in jail, and then so many resources get, I think, maybe spoiled on bringing cigarettes and cheese sandwiches and making noise outside of the prison, which obviously it's great. It's also a show of solidarity to these people that sacrificed their body for this action.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you have limited resources, you have limited time, you have limited energy, and now it's being spent on something that doesn't contribute towards the goal. And in some cases, yes, also you do see that people are sort of presented maybe as a martyr because they got arrested or they did some action. and it's, well, good for them. It gives them some kind of credibility, which is then sometimes abused maybe as well. Wasim explained to me that during the Intifada in Palestine, sometimes collaborators of the occupation would be arrested by the occupation just to show that they are legitimate resistance fighters, and then afterwards they are used as informants. So yeah, that could be at play as well, maybe even with people who get arrested here.
Right. So a lot of tactics of individualizing the struggle. I think that's the broad theme here. Can you speak a little more about? Did you end up getting arrested by Israel?
Yeah.
So how was their treatment face to face? What did you learn about maybe the psychology behind how they try to break down resistance or put you in their eyes back in your place? You know, like.
For sure. Yeah, it's a really surreal and bizarre reality to sort of come upon. We were all sailing, and at south of Crete we were constantly followed by drones, particularly at night. So we would always see drones at night following us. And then south of Crete we were bombed. So drones would fly with explosive ordinances into our ship's rigging and into our sails, and then after that, some Spain and Italy sent military ships to sort of like escort us to where we were supposed to go, and they weren't there for. They were only going to like do rescue operations, etc. And so that was, so that was the first big thing that I was like, it's like you're stuck in a video game, and some 15-year-old incel boy is in control of your fate.
Right.
And
you mean the one operating the drone, from miles away?
But I think that's how it is, right? These like 18-year-old kids graduate high school, and they are now in control of sort of these tremendous weapons, and have the ability to just oppress people and obliterate them. And so once we got into the sort of like, I think the red zone, people call it, where Israel has sort of set up their naval blockade, we were approached by ships. Our sort of leading ship established radio contact with the Israeli Navy. The Navy said, turn back now. And Tiago Avila, who's the leader, or sort of like one of the organizers of the mission, who was also on the Handala, who's one of the people who put it together, he said, this whole thing, you have an illegal blockade. We are humanitarians on a humanitarian mission. We carry no weapons. We mean no harm. We will continue to sail to Gaza. They said, you will be intercepted. And then the sort of, that whole event started, I think it was around 8 o'clock UTC. And it went on until like 4 a.m. So it's a couple different types of boats. One really big military ship, all these like smaller, it must be 20 meters, really fast. They have no lights on. They come up to your boat really close. They shine a big light on you. And so one thing that was really good about having all these small boats is that they cannot be boarded by larger boats. So they have to deploy smaller boats to then board your ship. So that was a whole operation of madness for them. And we were constantly keeping a really tight formation with all these small boats. It's like, I was like trying to describe it as this like epic naval battle. But you don't have any weapons to like do anything. So you just like kind of just keep on. You just keep going.
How long was that struggle between you trying to keep going forward and the other boats physically trying to stop you? Is there any, do you have any, how do you say, like validity or strength in your numbers there? Like you can actually hold them off for a bit? Or
you definitely, but all communications are already jammed and ruined. So you're really just trying to like play it by ear in the middle of the night, and it's dark and it's so incredibly tricky. But we just all tried to keep on going, and then they kind of like had these big water cannons, so they'd get really close to our ships, and then they'd blast us with water cannons. and they'd said like, turn off the engine and then we'll stop spraying, turn off the engine, we'll stop spraying, and none of us did.
You just kept going.
Yeah. And then eventually, they would deploy these small dinghies with a couple of commandos on, and then they started boarding the ships. So I remember very well that one of my best friends that I made in Sicily, seeing his boat get boarded at sea, and the commandos boarding, and we just kept on going. Or that then.
So it was at night, right, when they did it?
It was all night.
So then it's like you have this completely pitch dark sea around you, I'm guessing.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then you see a lot of really bright lights coming from their ships.
Bright lights, boats coming sort of out of nowhere. There's this really big ship that got really close to us and sprayed us with a water cannon. And I was like, we almost like hit them, and they almost hit us, whatever. Yeah. And we turned away. And
was everybody panicking at that point, or was everybody like so focused and quiet and like?
I was scared shitless.
Yeah,
so, like,
obviously.
Most of the time, when we almost hit this boat, you get like sprayed by a big water cannon, and we're almost about to hit it, and I'm like yelling at the captain, I'm like, turn the fucking boat away, and all of this, we have to turn the fucking boat away. But yeah, and then I saw a green light laser on the person next to me, and then it went over to me, and then it went all around everyone. We were all sitting in the sort of cockpit with our life jackets on, sort of being prepared to be boarded already. So that's always like, all these videos that you see of how the occupation forces behave and how they operate, that's all real, and not that it was never real in the videos, but it's definitely absurd to sort of then be in that position. But eventually we got boarded after like 6 hours. Small boat comes up, they board us, we all sit like this with our life jackets on. We don't really speak to them. They're all really clumsy. They were very
really?
They were incredibly inept. It seemed like the sort of commando groups had like one or two experienced guys, and then the rest were all young, kind of young kids with big weapons, and so it's just bizarre. It's like absurd that this sort of like culture is and then I think for our experience, once we got taken to the port and then processed, and then everyone you see there, everyone I've seen was carrying assault rifles and weapons and was in a uniform of either military, police, or Shin Bet or Mossad. It's all these sort of factions.
Sometimes I cannot imagine how it's possible with such a small country as Israel is in the end, with a few million people, I guess like 9 million Jewish people that are able to join these kind of institutions. It must be that almost everyone in this country is working either for the military or intelligence.
I mean, there's 2 years of mandatory training, right, or deployment.
But still, like even without mandatory deployment.
Yeah, but billions of foreign aid and support make it really
but
get the best job in town.
Yeah,
right? That's the sad thing.
I would say that, but funny enough, what we're trying to bolster here in the left wing, let's say, or in the anti-colonial struggle, is something that Israel actually does very well, which is solidarity for their own group. They have, I mean, there's cracks showing. There's some fundamental contradictions between the Orthodox and the new age, more fascist Israelis, but as in that some are, more pacifist, some are more violent, but still, for a long time, they've had this very cohesive group of a population that finds that cohesion through the traumatic experience of serving in the military, and then they come out of that trauma with a feeling of brotherhood and having overcome things together.
Absolutely.
And they have absolute solidarity to the point that they all are able to follow very similar scripts when they happen to be on media or when you happen to interview them on the street. You see how it's very much coordinated and step in step, right? They don't deviate as much from each other. They might point fingers at each other internally, but those are never headlines that reach it to that are ever reached to the English press or the international press, right?
No, they're very united in their sort of fascism.
Yeah, and I think that's part of how they manage to be so effective. And I think we shouldn't learn the fascism part from them, but we could learn a thing or two about coordination and sacrificing yourself for the bigger group.
Absolutely, you know? And fraternizing together in this sort of like there is definitely this. It's funny, you know. It's almost like suggesting that we should all be collectively indoctrinating ourselves for the cause, but it is a bit like that, right? Where we all do this. We all do this together, and I think within our organizations, we are really often really hyper individualistic, and we are also so easily torn apart into not appreciating and understanding that our struggles and all struggles against imperialism, or all struggles are inherently anti-imperialism. It's so easy, like colonial.
From a South American perspective, like Bolivia it's the only country, perhaps in the world, but definitely in South America, that is over 50, that has the majority of the population being indigenous, right? So it is a majority indigenous population that has suffered under the boot of America many times. Yet, when you go to the church in Bolivia, they are fundraising for Israel, right? So they have very little solidarity. Some groups do, but the mainstream in Bolivia, for example, and in wider South America, is that Israel is a civilizing force that represents Western ideals, civilization, Christianity, and that these Muslim hordes are there at the door trying to tear it apart through terrorism and sporadic violence. And if only we were able to connect a lot of these points together and show solidarity between groups that are actually have common interests, instead of splitting, because you have that religion and I have this religion, I'm going to join the oppressor side because at least they're oppressing you, right? And I don't like you. And this is, for example, also now to draw it to something bigger, in the US, all these benefits being taken away from people.
Yeah.
And what do you see the Republicans posting? They're posting AI videos of black people saying, "Oh, I'm exploiting the system. I'm getting all these SNAP benefits just to run a scheme, and then I sell them on the black market." Like, they have ridiculous, completely fabricated stories.
Yeah.
And the idea there is to tell the white man in the US, the working class, that we're on your side because we're with you in oppressing that group, right?
Yeah, and we can tell you that we can demonize these people. And what you say is really funny. The Panthers in the US really did something really awesome. I think it was Huey P. Newton who started the Rainbow Collective, right? The Rainbow Coalition, I think, in which they organized with a bunch of sort of like white workers unions and queer rights.
Exactly.
They kind of banded together in their fight against the imperial US.
And that's why they were eventually assassinated, I would say, because they found the key, which is they very much invited and wanted the white working class to be part of the Black Panther meetings and have even equal footing in some of these discussions, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't take this black nationalist idea to an extreme where they then promote segregation or say it's only us against them. Mm-hmm. They combined these larger pictures together and said, look, we all have the same interest here.
Yeah.
And we all have the same oppressor here. We can work together.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful. And I also think I think we often I think the fact that they did that is also a sort of tribute that we don't have to then sacrifice, or that sort of BIPOC communities or queer communities don't have to sacrifice their sort of safety by collaborating with other groups against imperialist powers. There's a way to do that in which we garner solidarity through working together. Yeah. But it's always a big risk because people are really super indoctrinated, and it's really hard to.
And it's difficult to not get into the how do you say, their divide and conquer tactics.
Exactly.
For me now, just walking into the toilet, I saw this sticker of wij claimen de nacht, we claim the night, which is like against femicide, right? And it's sometimes so hard to feel connected to this struggle when it's being used to demonize immigrants, for example. So this is not the intention, I guess, of most women who join these kind of marches, or men as well who join it. But then in the end, it gets turned around, and it's the story is being spun in a way that it's, well, the women are just being killed by immigrants, or immigrants are also the problem of this.
Yeah, particularly, but also that's media doing that, right? It's not us, and it's not that women's movement. It's not Wij de Nacht op, the movement that does that at all, right? Yeah. That's not and their intention at all.
I think originally not, but you will have a few people that start doing that, and they get all the funding, all the media attention, and we sort of pretend like they start to represent the movement. Like that is always how the system functions, let's say.
Yeah, because it's way better for imperialist structures to co-opt movements and then act like they can work in favor of these, whereas they never do.
And bringing up queer rights, I mean, that's pink washing. The genocide in Gaza is a huge part of that.
For sure.
And it's funny because if you look at Israeli society and a lot of the polling that's done there, people are really not that liberal on social issues, on gender issues. There is a subset in Tel Aviv, I'm sure, and they have nice parties, but they
have a pride parade once a year, so they're good.
And these images go everywhere, right? Like, I remember 3 years ago getting ads of gay pride in Tel Aviv saying, go to Tel Aviv, on your vacation.
And it works. When you talk to gay people in the Netherlands, you will notice that some of them will just be in favor of Israel because they went to Tel Aviv Pride once and they had a good fuck.
So but the people themselves are actually not that pro LGBT, and there's a big conservative group in Israel. Obviously, it was very religious and anti secularism or queer identity, let's say. So you and I mean, we've discussed this a lot. What do we do when different movements start to go against each other? And
you're asking me for the solution now. I just know how to identify the problem.
Yeah, but
I'm not on the solution yet.
I think I have the solution, right? A solution. So
bold statement. I love it.
I actually think that when they, for example, Sudan, right? This is one we discussed. Sudan is getting all this attention now, and for us who are involved in the movement, we just have this instinct that this is to take away attention from Palestine because they're doing this fake ceasefire so that everyone can stop thinking about it, and the genocide can continue, but in a different form and undercover.
And also the images they choose to pick are really telling, like that the video of the gassing is being spread so widely. It really pulls at a certain kind of string.
But I would say my reflex would be, instead of saying, how dare you bring up Sudan in the context of what's going on in Palestine, my reflex would be, thank you for bringing attention to this matter. Matter of fact, the people funding the RSF who are committing the genocide in Sudan is the UAE. We know that they have their weapons. The weapons are Israeli, they're American, they're European, a little bit Chinese, unfortunately. And it's the same people who are actually allied, Israel, UAE, United States, who are part of a global supply chain for capitalism that is creating both the genocide in Sudan and Palestine. Similarly, thank you for bringing attention to queer rights. It's important everywhere, not only here, but in Palestine, everywhere. The same oppressors that are trying to use that to divide us and replacing economic debate with social debate, they're the same oppressors. So I think the reflex should be really to build on top of it, to take the attention they're giving us and tie it back to our cause.
Absolutely. I thoroughly agree.
But that's not that. That is the solution, but it's not that easy. That's the problem. Even myself, I'm aware of this, and still, when I see the sticker of "We Claim the Night," I get this kind of gut reaction against it. And I think it's similar to what
that gut reaction is what they're doing it for. They want Ruben, the Palestinian activist, to have a bad gut reaction to the anti-femicide community, let's say, or movement. Because as soon as we have these gut feelings, we will not bind together. Similarly, I'm sure they want the femicide movement to have a negative gut feeling when they see a Palestinian flag. right? By tying it to immigrants that are supposedly doing all these crimes, you know?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. I always think this when you see people who have queer flags outside of their apartments and people who have Palestine flags out of their apartments, and I'm like, there is no, to put both of them up is not a contradiction. You know, those things go hand in hand.
Really? Chickens for KFC, a thing, right? That's how they try to spin it.
Yeah, but that's what they do, right? Exactly. Is that as you said, that Israel's the only pro.
But it's a really powerful phrase or like soundbite, like the chickens for KFC.
But it's so easy to negate nuance, right? It's so easy to propose a situation and one cause and one effect, rather than look at a situation and understand that there's a web of causes that form it, right? And rather than, you know, these things are so inherently complex and tied together, and to really, rather than when we get these gut reactions of like, oh, I wonder if this movement is against, or like, why does, you know, be inquisitive about those gut reactions and like explore the complexities of like how everything is really tied together, and then we can really garner solidarity, and we don't have to, not everyone has to do everything, right? This is what you said as well. I go back, and one of my friends was like, okay, or like a person that I knew was like, are you going to be doing something for, and what about Sudan and the Congo now? And I was like, okay, like, wicked, like you brought those up, you know, I was stuck in an Israeli jail, but so I couldn't really go be active for Congo and Sudan, but that's great that you brought them up, because those are issues we should also be talking about, and we should be fighting for. And I was like, if you're passionate about that, and if you're like, that's messed up, then by all means, like, I encourage you to like give a fuck, you know?
Exactly, exactly. And I think we also need to acknowledge as a broader movement that different people will have different entry points into the movement, right?
For sure.
So we saw now in New York, for example, Zoran Mandani gets this fantastic win, and some people are saying that that's because of the Palestine issue. It was something that was debated a lot with him. But when you look at the numbers, that was issue number 8 or 9 for most voters. When you look at the Netherlands, we had marches of over, you know, hundreds of thousands, 200,000, I thought it. I heard
250, I think the largest
250,000 that went to the street and mobilized for Palestine against the genocide, and still it was not reflected in the voting, right?
Well, that depends, because I think a lot of people who voted for Disa Sesta, for example, they think that he is very Israel critical, because he said some things that were critical of Israel.
If you look at the overall seats and how they're distributed, the right wing and the extreme right, the far right, they have the same amount of seats as they had before. They just shifted parties. So I didn't see that big exodus saying, hey, human rights are important. But instead of getting depressed and stuck on that point, I think let Mandani lead the way, in the sense that he said, whenever he was asked about Palestine, he said, yeah, of course I support human rights, but my main focus is on freezing the rent, is on combating the pains that capitalism is putting onto you. And this is, I think, the most common entry point we can find. So we welcome people whose entry point is from Palestine, from anti-femicide, anti-genocide in Sudan. We welcome all these people, but strategically speaking, I think we should start to lead with the economic issue, because that is the pain that people here feel every day, and that still is tied back to the same struggle. And if we can use that as a wedge issue and always connect it and build on top of other issues, then I think we have a really strong case.
Yeah, I think we need to like talk to, for the case of the Netherlands, you need to encourage people and show people that the issues that they face, despair and the state that we're in. Whereas like if political parties or groups can effectively communicate that it's actually our global economic system and our role in that can change and propose proper solutions, which people do, but we're just not heard, right? And that's what sucks. So we have to continue to be heard, and sometimes a protest is good, but also taking to the street and also talking to people in your family and your friends who are not completely there yet.
Yeah.
Not that there's a place to be, but like, kind of, start that conversation that needs to happen in every circle.
And we need to add some kind of education on what imperialism is in the curriculum on schools, maybe, because it's a subject that's so like almost completely avoided in a way, or only spoke about like it's something that's in the past, right? I find it strange that I had to discover this whole concept of imperialism behind my computer on Wikipedia from the age of 15 to 25, and nobody in school ever mentioned it. It's crazy.
Yeah,
right,
tragic.
right. Yeah, but I do like going. I'm gonna be annoying here and bring up my point again, but I think people will let you get away with any foreign policy that you want, as long as you are improving their material conditions.
For sure.
And we have such an easy path forward, an obvious path forward to improve people's material conditions, because we are suffering under this late stage capitalist economic structure that relies now exclusively on exploiting and extracting resources from the global south. And this is being slowly cut off. So you see now in France, a lot of the riots is because the economy is collapsing thanks to Western Africa, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, cutting off their gold supplies, their free gold supplies to France, taking back their gold reserves from Paris to their local countries. And that has actually devastated the French economy because they're heavily reliant on that.
So you're saying the best way for us to end this empire is to influence the people in the resource-rich countries to take back control.
Yeah, and I think
because then it will collapse
exactly
so quickly.
And I think the way you do it is by making it relevant to them and saying, we need to end the structure because it's making you poor. It's making sure that your children will grow up in a world that is less fit for life. Whether that's because of...
Yeah, but on the other hand, I might say, now we're being robbed by the empire, but at least we're not being bombed. And if we start resisting, we will be bombed and killed.
Yeah, that's the individualizing the whole movement, right? But if you look at the US, that I always say is only 10 years ahead of Europe, right? I think whatever you see in the US will come here eventually. At least that's how it's been so far. People are going to the street. Less and less people have money. You see now that the richest 10% of the US are responsible for 60% of the economy. That means 10% of the population is purchasing everything. The Hollywood idea of Americans with a nice house and products, that group of people is getting smaller and smaller. And eventually more and more people feel that pain. And that's where we have a really strong chance of jumping in and saying, we have a better solution. And it includes queer liberation. It includes the freedom of Palestinians and Sudanese and people oppressed all around the world. It includes stopping bombing Venezuela, for example. But ultimately, it's in your interest. It's in all of our interests, because this new system will allow us to prosper, right?
For sure. I think, I think it's also just workers unionizing again is such a big part of it, and like bringing I think we have sort of like the struggle of working people and working class people has been so co-opted into like Western capitalism that now, like in the Netherlands, unions aren't big at all, which is such a shame, because those people can really change the direction of how a country goes. And it's like talk about things that you had to learn on Wikipedia, like the international workers of the world, and like the struggle means of production, and like leveraging your position as a worker within capitalism is absolutely possible. And we have completely lost the ability
because of individual benefits, right?
For sure.
If I strike for the group, my individual career might be put at odds. If I speak on camera, my individual career might be put on odds. So I will not do it, right? Like, this is the Western mentality we have to break and replace it with solidarity.
Absolutely. I had this the whole time in this Flotilla thing. Is like, the whole time I was thinking, I'm going to lose my job.
Yeah.
Literally.
Did you?
No, I just got back and they still let me work. So, but
that's fantastic.
Yeah, lucky me, I guess, right? But it's like this sort of like, yeah, like our sense of security is so, particularly in the West, it's like we're so attached to it, and it kind of puts us in this strange position of this hyper privileged position where we can go and protest for something, but then also we never actually really risk what other people risk who are suffering now.
Yeah.
And the moment many of us do risk that, and we risk our jobs and we risk our lives, like everyone in those situations is already doing in Palestine, in Congo, you know, then we are so easily sort of like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And to have that position, that is what privilege is, right?
So also what we need to do is make sure that we have some kind of, how do you say?
Community.
Something. Yes, community. Yeah. And so that if an activist gets fired, he knows for sure that there's like a group of people who make sure at least you have food, at least you have water.
Yeah. But that's how Europe once upon a time was. You had several layers. You had the state with welfare, right? No matter what happens to you, we'll take care of you. You had the workers' union, another layer, right? You had the family and your local community and your village or your neighborhood, that we take care of each other here. So whatever happens, we've got you. That was also the groundworks necessary in South America for the Cuban Revolution and so on. That is instrumental. Yeah. And we keep coming back to this point of individualism taking you out of the fight, because you know that nobody has your back, or at least you think nobody has your back. So if we can replace individualism with solidarity, I think that is, for me, the key message. Then then we have a big chance.
Can I plug a really
Go on.
Cool? So recently I came across the Solidarity Collective, is a Dutch group, and they do exactly that. They like people that go to so recently a group of people occupied Fokker building in Papendrecht, the weapons industry manufacturer that is allied with Israel, and they all got arrested, and the Solidarity Collective is like just a place where people like us who have jobs, we can like give money so that they can then help bail out these people that do the frontline work, which is like awesome, because then we can continue to do this, and people can continue, people who have, you know,
because we're gonna need people who are gonna do this full time, right? Like CD has, I don't know how many employees, but several employees that can work full time just on disseminating this genocide propaganda. And like we don't have this kind of centralized workforce to do this. Everybody's doing it in their free time. That's great, but to really make a dent, we need to professionalize as well and really be able to offer this as a job.
And so to set up the support networks for frontline work is really instrumental for change, I think.
Like that's where a workers' union would be perfect.
Exactly.
Everyone pays a bit of their salary, and then there's a community of people that or professionals that work full time on your behalf to represent your interests. Now, historically, that's mostly economic, but in many instances, it turns social as well.
For sure.
We see now the dock workers in Italy, how they went on strike. Right? So
they are trying to separate the two, especially here in the Netherlands. I think FNV or like the workers' unions, they are so hesitant to include these kind of causes as a good reason to strike, right? They will say, no, it's not supposed to be like that. But you should just strike for working conditions.
Once the structure is there, it will always be used. Because if all of us in the union are saying, whatever this political situation is, you know, fill in the blank, has to stop, we will use that instrument because we're already organized.
Two people on my ship were union affiliated, in one from France and one from Australia, which is really cool. It's great to learn about unions and union struggles, because
there are quite a lot of good people in the workers' unions here in the Netherlands as well that are doing the work, but it's just that the top layer of the unions, they are not moving.
And
that's what we see everywhere.
And it's been co-opted again, right, into this like sort of like Dutch sort of capitalism, right? Where we can put you in your place, and it's like, and it's the same. This guy in Australia said the same thing. Like they have to ask to strike and get permission to strike, and it's all of these things rather than. So they take away your power for a couple of pleasantries, right? And we really should, bargain for our position back.
Yeah, we're almost at time, so I did want to ask, in case anyone has a topic or a question they would like to bring up, feel free to shout out. Otherwise, I will go to closing remarks. Yeah, Ness.
I was wondering, how was
your... it's a good question.
That's a tough one to end on.
Yeah, no, it's
feel
fine.
Feel free to share as much as you want.
I'm always happy to talk about it. I think it's... I'm happy, but it's good because I think... what we see there, what we all saw there is like so incredibly bizarre. So the first, we go through this sort of immigration, and then we get strip searched several times. Your shoelaces get cut off, and then at the prison, you get put on the prison bus, and then at prison we have to change into our prison clothes, and they strip you naked. And so I was really scared most of the time at the beginning in particular, because you never know what's going to happen. And I think it's like, for someone who's grown up always having agency over my own life and what I do, that is crazy, right? Like, and it's kind of, so that's a stark difference.
People underestimate this. Like, I've never been in jail, but really thinking about just losing the freedom to move where you want, losing agency, it's crazy. It's so it messes with your mind even.
Yeah, and you have to get you are constantly in an uncomfortable position, which is interesting because when you're uncomfortable, usually you just get comfortable. If you're in the West, like if you're not sitting comfortably, you readjust. That's like not a thing that you can do. But we were in a prison cell with 13 people, all from the Flotilla. There was 8 beds, so some of us slept on mattresses on the floor. In the whole cell block, there was one cell block which was all the women, there was one cell block which was men, and then there was another cell block which was the rest of the men. So in the cell block I was in was completely full, and we all sang the whole time. We sang in English, in French, in Turkish, in Arabic. It was great. It was really wonderful. By every time the guards came by, I think once I kind of realized that they weren't really allowed to hurt us physically, we kind of like had this just sort of funny change in dynamics where you realize that they're really stuck in there with you and you're not in there with them. Like those people that work in the prison will spend most of their lives working an incredibly shitty job, dehumanizing people that don't deserve to be humanized. And I was going to be there for 5 days. And so I made really good friends. I have a group chat with all the people that I was in the cell with, and we sent memories and talk. We like used the food to like graffiti the wall. There's a jam from the sandwiches for red and the olives for green, and we tore our prison flip-flops for black. And they would come into the prison cell at like random times and like just count everyone just to pester us. Sometimes they'd come in with like a dog. One time they were really, one of my comrades, he was like, refused to get back into the cell, and so he just sat in the courtyard. And they were trying to carry him, and we all like kind of kept the door open. And then once they pushed him back in, they like, cocked a shotgun and like put it on the cell window. And I was like, holy shit. And then I saw like 6 of my cellmates just not moving. And it was just epic. It was so incredibly powerful. Like, what are they going to do? Like, shoot one of the people on the flotilla in a cell? Like, that is just like, I mean, you wouldn't be surprised for all the bad PR they already get, but that would have been pretty far. And also, I think at that point we were already so ready to, you can't really sacrifice anything more, right? And so it was really, really wonderful to see the solidarity between everyone in the prison. And And so like I kind of like, yeah, lots of us were on hunger strike, so that was really difficult to be really tired the whole time. But I think us as the Flotilla had a really kind of like a really fun time, you know, like but the nasty things were like lying in the cell and hearing planes fly over, knowing that they would go from likely from a military base to Gaza and dropping explosives. And then one thing that's really strange is that I don't know if it's like actually real and happened to me, but we weren't really allowed out of the cell. So sometimes we would go to see a judge or see the embassy or whatever. And you could walk, and it was really fun because I would tell everyone to just walk really slow. And it's such a funny thing how that becomes like such a powerful thing because they can't really push you. So and they get really annoyed and they go, yalla, yalla, go walk. And you just go walk slow and then you act like you're tying your shoelaces, but you're wearing flip-flops. And it's like it just pisses them off. So all of these things are pretty funny. But I heard screaming from the other side of the prison in this like huge sort of shit, just like hell on earth, you know. And yeah, it wasn't like us, it wasn't Flotilla people screaming, it was in pain. And so that's really horrid. Yeah, people, you know, there's like traces of like people having been in the cells and writing their names and the names of their children and that they were martyred. So it's like, it's just this place where, again, it's just such a stark contrast because that, for so many people, is the end. That's where it ends for them, and they have their names taken away, you know. And I get to come back here and talk to you because I look like this and I have a Dutch passport. So
yeah, I think that's something that Tanya Safi also touched on. I mean, you get special treatment. You're only there for 5 days.
Yeah.
There was clearly some protection because of your European status, I imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, even there was definitely some different treatment towards people from North Africa and non-Western passports, but I think and they got treated far harsher as well. Like black and brown people still within the Flotilla got harsher treatments, but it was still nowhere near as, because we also had so much media support.
Yeah, I heard some of the crew members that you're saying that were brown or black getting they did get physical abuse.
Yeah,
that's what I understood. And as you said, the most horrifying part I can imagine is the screams of the actual Palestinian prisoners who have no end inside, who are many of them there without charge, some of them children, and these are torture camps for these people, right? So I can also see in your face how scarring that is to have to hear.
Yeah, it's crazy. One thing that was so bizarre to see is to see the guards that are so used to, they were so confused because they could not use physical and sexual threats and terror to put us in our place. And so it was so weird for them to be so powerless. Right. Because the sort of hatred and disturbance in their eyes and in their soul, it could not be enforced.
Could not be manifested, so to speak.
And so it gave us tremendous power, but we also had discussions of like, you know, is us harassing them really doing anything, or does it just make them take it out on the next best Palestinian person in prison? So those are other different, interesting and bizarre conversations to have as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. I don't really know how to end it from there.
That's okay.
That's
depressing.
Intense.
Thank you.
Sorry.
But, if anything, I mean, I guess it's the theme of this event as well, as I understood. So let that tragedy fill you with rage.
Yeah.
let it motivate you to take action.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, the best action to take, thank you to Alexander for organizing this, is exactly something like this, providing community to people that are going to feel more and more individualized, ostracized as capitalism progresses. Offer them community, offer them solidarity, and let's join these struggles together.
Yeah.
And when someone takes action like yourself, if you were to get fired, let's make sure you have a home when you come back.
And let it fill you with love as well.
Let it
Rage
fill
and
you
love.
From solidarity, from
Yeah,
community, let that fill you with love, and hopefully we all dance together later to manifest that. And,
are you joining another flotilla or considering?
I will probably continue to be involved with the movement in one way, shape, or form. Is what I can say now. I think is what is wise to say now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fully.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you both for coming on.
Yeah,
thank you
thanks.
guys for joining, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thanks.
All right.
Heaps.